TruckerDump, episode 127, Why Podcasts Are the Best Media for Truckers. In today's show, you're going to find out why I'm not in the Kenworth anymore. I'm going to tell you what you can expect about this advertising that I've got going on here, and we're going to hear an interview from one of the sponsors today. Someone wrote in to correct me about Oregon speed limits. Got a new segment of Trucker Grub, Mexican food. And I'm going to tell you about a couple of cool apps and point you at a helpful article. In the feedback section, well, I screwed up again. Sorry, Renee. Jeff writes in with the clarification about the CRST exemption for not having to have a license to drive a truck. Wow. Taylor asks about trucker seats. Got a quick story about Trucker Bob's reserve parking saga that happened. Jeff has a suggestion for getting the word out to truckers about podcasting. And Roger is pissed about my tailgating article. You're going to want to stick around for that. And of course, the main topic is why I think podcasts are the best media for truckers. This episode of TruckerDump is sponsored by Citadel Fleet Safety and East Insurance Group.
Welcome to TruckerDump, where you'll get one driver's insights and sometimes humorous views of truck driving and the trucking industry, and pretty much anything else he feels like dumping on you. This podcast is brought to you by AboutTruckDriving.com. Resources that help you understand the world of truck driving through the use of stories and a pathetic attempt at humor.
Hello, Trucker Dumpers. How y'all doing out there today? For those of you new to the show, my name is Todd McCann. I'm a 20-year trucker. I'm also the author of 2 trucking ebooks, one called Trucking Life, one called How to Find a Great Truck Driving Job. And, a little known fact, I once dove out of a tree into 2 feet of water because the evil overlord, my wife and ex-co-driver, told me to. There may have been alcohol involved in that. And for the record, she honestly didn't think I was going to do it. That'll show her how stupid I was. Can't believe she married me after that. Anyway, I'm recording from the Loves in Mount Vernon, Texas today, which is the home of 2 whole crapper stalls. How can a truck stop have 2 crapper stalls in the men's room? How is that even possible? Oh well. Anyway, I'm picking up at the Lowe's Distribution Center, just one exit down. Later on tonight, had a little bit of time to podcast and get my February episode out. Oh wait, did I miss February? Yes, I did. I missed February. I tried to get it done, but I couldn't get her done. You know, they always tell me every year, January, February is going to be slow. Be prepared. And then they run me to death. So I don't know why they tell us that every year. I guess lowering expectations, which is what I always try to do with you guys on this podcast. Lower your expectations so you don't expect a podcast every single month. Anyway, hoping to get this out in the first week or 2 of March and get back on schedule. Anyway. All right. So what do we got going on? Well, first off, I'm not in my Kenworth, like I mentioned. Oh boy. Here I am. It's a Friday night. This was about 3 or 4 weeks ago. I'm cruising along. I get a message on the dash that says the truck is being derated. Now, you truckers know what that means. But for you non-truckers, what that means is sometimes when something's going wrong with your engine or something, the truck will decide to just cut itself back on power. And how much power it cuts back all depends on the severity of the problem. Well, luckily, I'm cruising along 65 mile an hour in Wisconsin, and all I really noticed was that I wasn't pulling hills quite as fast as I was before. So I had lost power, but not a lot of it. So I just kept on rolling, which I know, probably a bad thing to do, but I could tell it was something to do, from the engine light, I could tell it was something to do with the DEF, the diesel exhaust fuel fluid. Yeah, diesel exhaust fluid. Man, I think I should know that. I've been driving this long. Anyway, like I said, I was getting derated, but I just kept going. I actually drove for like an hour and a half to where I was hoping to get closer to civilization. And I got to Mauston, Wisconsin. Knew the pilot would be full, but I thought that quick trip there at exit 69 would be empty or close to it. So I pulled in there. I just thought, okay, you know, sometimes trucks just do weird things. I'm just going to turn the key off and then turn it back on, hope everything resets. This kind of thing had happened before. Well, this time when I did that, it derated, and it derated to 5 mile an hour. I mean, it was one of those things where I could barely get enough power to actually turn around and back into an open spot. And of course, they had to call a tow truck out. Little did I know, Wisconsin is a state that you are not supposed to tow truck and trailer. So I thought, oh boy, I'm going to be here for a really long time. Surprisingly enough, they were going to send out 2 tow trucks, one for me, one for my trailer. But they only sent out one, and I thought, oh boy, we're in big trouble. But the tow truck guy, don't worry about it. We just haul these things, truck and trailer, all the time. Made it worse that it was snowing, and there was some ice on the ground. So I had about an hour and a half ride crammed between 2 big boys, shall we say. They tried to be nice, and one of them tried to sit on a bucket between the seat, but he was far too large to fit in that seat. So I volunteered, being the skinny mini I am, crammed my tiny little butt on that seat, and had the hour and quarter ride down there. Little did I know while this was going on that the company had already dispatched somebody to come and get me. They weren't even going to wait around to find out what was going on with the truck. I guess maybe they called ahead and found out that they were backed up. The Kenworth dealer was backed up, and I wasn't going to get it anytime soon. So they just had already sent someone to me. He showed up in a couple hours. His name was Dan, I believe. Hard to believe I rode with the guy for 2 days, and I have trouble remembering his name, but I think his name was Dan. Great guy. We got along really well. We talked a lot. Both of us talked before you say anything. Okay, I probably did about 60% of the talking, but he was not shy by any means. Really super nice guy. He was another million miler, so I knew I was in good hands as he drove. And you know what I always like to do for million milers is I like to ask them, did you really have 1 million safe miles? Because this guy's been driving since 1930. No, not 1937. Wow, he'd be dead. No, he's been driving for 37 years. And, you know, he's got, I think he's got well over like 2 million safe miles. And I thought, okay, here I go. I'm going to ask him, you know, did you really drive all those miles without having an accident? And he had one of the best quotes I've ever heard that I just died laughing. He said, well, let's just say I'm good at hiding the evidence. I just love that. So thank you for that, Dan. I'm going to be using that for sure. Oh, wow. So anyway, they shipped me I rode with this guy, had to ride with him overnight, get a hotel twice, because we had a delivery in Chicago on the way down to our Ohio yard. And I got down there. Luckily, the truck they had available was non-smoking. I got in it, sniffed around. Of course, we've been through that before and had problems before when the smoke smell actually came back. This time it did not, so I was very happy. The only thing I have to say about this, I do like the layout of the Internationals better. They've got a lot more storage space. I just think their cup holders and stuff are all in a better arrangement. And for instance, like where my big portable refrigerator freezer slides in, it's actually on the ground in the ProStar, whereas in the Kenworth it was above. It was in a little cabinet off to the side, but it was above the shelf. So every time I wanted to get in that thing, I had to kind of pull it out, rest it on the edge, and hold it up while I, opened up and dug through it. And it kind of made it a pain in the butt. It doesn't make any sense to do that. But anyway, maybe that hole's more designed for a refrigerator, that opens like a traditional door. I don't know. But anyway, it was kind of inconvenient. But I get in this thing, and it's a ProStar LT, and it just feels cheaper. I don't really know how to describe it. Like when I open the door, I get this hollow popping sound, from just opening the door handle. And you just don't get that in the Kenworth. Boy, when you slam that door, you get this nice solid feeling. It reminds me of like my mom's Cadillac she used to have years ago, and just the solid feel that had, just boom. And everything in here, just in this ProStar, is just, I don't know, it feels less good. You get what I mean? It just doesn't feel like the fit and finish in this truck is quite as good. But you know what? Hey, it's not breaking down on me all the time. It's not having any niggling problems right now. We'll hope that continues. Anyway, I have spent 11 minutes talking about this, so I guess I better get on with it. Okay, I said I wanted to explain this advertising here a bit. What I'm trying to do is actually bring good content to you guys through the advertising. So I will be doing host-read ads like I did for East Insurance Group last podcast. But I also give them the option to make one of their ads an interview. That way they can talk about their product a little bit more. It's better for them. It gets their message across better. It actually, gives me some content to fill up. So I appreciate that too. But it just gives you guys a better idea of what they're trying to sell, and it gives them a better value for the money that they're giving me for the podcast. By the way, I'm not going to be retiring from trucking on this money. So just so you know, still buy my books, please. Anybody help? Anyway, so I just wanted to explain how I'm going to be doing this, because one of my friends, Driver Chris Mack, who is Driver Chris MC in Twitter and all the Slack groups and everything, he actually said he had a little trouble figuring out last episode what was an ad and what wasn't. Now, he's the only one who said that, but I thought he's probably the only one who actually said it to me. There's probably some other people actually are thinking about it. Well, I just wanted to let y'all know that in the future, and I think I did this in the last episode, but I'm not for sure, and I'm too lazy to go back and listen, but I will be making sure that I say, if something is a sponsor, I'm going to say, this is a sponsor. Or if I'm going to put an affiliate link in or something like that, which I don't do any of that stuff, but if I ever do, I will say, this is an affiliate link. I'll get a little cut back if you click on this link and buy the product or whatever, So just so you know, I'm going to tell you if something is sponsored. So if I don't say it's sponsored, then it isn't. I'm just talking about a product that I saw or I find interesting or want you to know about. So anyway, hope that clears that up. So we're going to get started here with this is the first of these interviews. We'll have one from East Insurance Group later on. Not in this episode, probably next episode. We had some scheduling issues going there, but we'll get to that eventually. But this one is from Citadel Fleet Safety, and they have a new product. So let's just get on with that. All right, so we've got Jim Rennie on today. He's the Senior Vice President and Director of Sales and Strategic Partnerships at Citadel Fleet Safety. Welcome to the show, Jim.
Thank you, Todd. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we're going to talk about a cool new product you got. This is called the Citadel Escort Mobile Emergency Response System. Is that right?
That's what it is, yes.
That is a mouthful. Hey, can you give us the elevator pitch on this, and we'll get into some more details here in a little bit.
Yeah, I think the best way for your audience to think of our Citadel Escort is a little fob. It's about the size of a key fob.
Okay.
With all sorts of neat little features, and it's all centered on driver safety.
Okay.
I think we all know the stresses of a truck driver, and many issues arise on the route, anywhere from medical worries or to suspicious people, suspicious vehicles. And we thought we'd supply them with a little mobile fob that goes with them inside, outside, and works any way that they are. They just push our little SOS button on the front of the fob, and the GPS signals in there. We know where they're at. Our monitoring center can talk to them through our two-way voice on the fob and determine and assess what the driver needs. And we dispatch medical or police to the situation within a minute.
Okay, so this isn't just like a device just for like I think I heard you describe it before as I've fallen and can't get up type of device for truckers, but it's not just for medical emergencies. It's for all kinds of things. For like if you come across an accident or something like that, you could just call, and that way you got both hands free to help people or whatever you need. Is that kind of the idea?
Yeah, yes. It's similar to the I've fallen, I can't get up, however, with a much more robust features from two-way voice to location. And then, our monitoring centers, there's 3 of them across the country, and our advisors are super experienced, over 30 years of experience in assessing what the driver needs. And we have the software of every jurisdiction across the country, from emergency to police, and we dispatch within a minute. So,
yeah, that's pretty fast.
Yeah.
Okay. You actually hold the button down on the fob. Where is the fob? You said it's a keychain. Do you keep it on a key ring, or what do you do with it?
Yeah, many drivers like to wear it on their lanyard, or they can wear it on our. We provide a carabiner, so they wear it on their belt clip.
Okay. They
can keep it in their jeans, any of the above, to include a wristwatch kind of band if they'd like.
Okay.
And it's one of these things that they just don't like to leave themselves without it, and they never know what kind of issues are around the corner, and Yeah, you're right. They just push the button, Todd, for 3 seconds. It vibrates, letting them know that the signal's been sent. And then our two-way voice monitoring center will be on within 40 seconds, talking to them, asking if they can help in any way.
Oh, sweet. Okay. So this thing, if you're wearing it on a carabiner, like around a belt clip or something like that, it's loud enough for you to be able to hear it without, taking it off and hold it up to your mouth?
Yes. You mean the two-way voice once our advisors come on to ask? Yes. It's as clear, if not better, than a phone conversation.
Oh, okay. Well, cool.
Yep. You bet.
Well, okay. Let's talk about the device a little bit itself. You said, okay, it's available 24/7. You can get to it really fast. What kind of coverage on this thing? I assume it's dependent on a cell signal, right?
It is. Yeah. So inside that fob, Todd, is inside the Citadel Escort is a SIM card, and we run it on the best network we believe in the country, and that's AT&T. It has 99% coverage, and it also triangulates with any other cell towers if they hit a gap. Mm-hmm. So it is AT&T, and it works indoors, outdoors, wherever you have an AT&T signal, and it's been terrific. We have not found any. We have lots and lots of customers. We haven't found any gaps in coverage yet, but it is important to let your audience know that it is the AT&T network.
And, one other thing I wanted to point out, because I was looking at your website and I thought, there's sometimes, I'm on Verizon, got good, good coverage pretty much, but there's still some times when you're out there and you're going, why don't I have a signal right now? I don't understand this. But I was looking on your website and I think it's great because all you're doing is voice. It's not like you need a lot of, data and stuff like that. So you're using the 3G network, which covers a lot more area than, like the 4G or the LTE or whatever.
Right.
So,
right.
And I'm sure that was baked in. You guys planned it that way, Plus it's cheaper to use that system, I assume.
It is. Yeah. We've tried to create this with the trucker mentality in mind, and have kept it affordable, to the tune of about 75 cents a day or $22 a month, and no equipment charge up front. We just kind of give it out and support it. So,
is there a contract associated with that, or is that just month to month?
No contracts. We sat there in a room for a while wrestling with that, and came out of the room all in agreement that, let's earn these drivers' business and companies' business every month, and no contracts whatsoever.
Man, I love that. I love that whole plan. This kind of a side note, but I was just thinking I need to swap hosting for my website.
Yeah.
And I was like, they just couldn't offer me the things I wanted, so I was going to move to this other one. And I called them up and I said, hey, can I get a refund? I'm up good through 2020. Mm-hmm. And they said, no, after 45 days, you're stuck. So I'm like, okay, now I've got 2 more years on this plan, and I have to just pay for it, Well, you're not earning what I need, so why don't you give me that money back? That's so uncool.
Right.
I'm not bitter though. I'm not bitter about that at all. Well, anyway. Okay. So you say it costs $22 a month. Is that right?
That is, yeah. And no equipment, charge, 0 out of pocket. We provide the fob, a lanyard, a charging cradle, a USB, so they can charge while they're on the move. Normal battery life is 3-4 days. Mm-hmm. If the battery goes low, we have a couple different ways to alert the drivers. The little blue light on the side blinks redundantly very quickly. And we also have a feature where our advisors will call them. Just say, hey, when you can, charge your Citadel Escort. And
like they can see if it's low, if they can get it to around 10%
yeah, we
or
monitor
whatever.
it, and we just don't want them needing it. And if it's out of juice, the signal wouldn't go through. So we kind of cover it off both ways.
That's a great feature because, if you got something like we're used to our cell phones nowadays, you got to pretty much charge them every day. Or if you're a trucker, you're charging them multiple times a day, and you're just in the habit of it. But with something like this, if it's going to last 3 or 4 days, you might, might forget all of a sudden. Cause
that's right.
It's not something you're going to be using every day. So it's not right, right on your mind.
Yep. No, we want it charged when the drivers need it. So we shepherd that pretty closely. And, I think I should share with you, we also have a tracking portal. So in other words, it's tracking.citadelfleet.com, and anyone who onboards a system has access to that tracking platform. Their family members can kind of know where they're at and they're safe. And it tracks all sorts of things from speed to location. We send text alerts and email alerts to family members if they'd like, and companies, corporate staffs when the SOS is pushed.
Okay.
Not that they have to do anything. We have it all handled, but it's nice to know that, hey, there's an issue out there and Citadel's taking care of it.
And the tracking is all opt-in, I assume, right?
You bet. Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's a lot of truckers out here with tinfoil hats on, and
right.
If that's not their bag, then they can just turn that off. They don't need that.
That's true. Absolutely right.
All right. So how sturdy is this fob? Is it weatherproof? What's going on with that?
Yeah, we did take a while to design it, test it, and put it through the rigorous temperatures and vibration. And yeah, the specifications are very, very hardy. It is water resistant. It could be dipped into water and then used. We don't recommend that, but it can be worn in the shower if somebody needed to. Mm-hmm. The temperatures that it works at is -40 up to 180. It's a very hard, well-sealed piece of formed rubber, if you will, mm-hmm. with a wonderful SOS button on the front and two-way voice speaker on the back. You can drop this from 5-6 feet repetitively, pick it up and use it again. It's a wonderfully designed, engineered fob.
Yeah, well, let's hope you don't have to do that with the wristband or the carabiner or the lanyard, Yeah.
Right.
Now, you mentioned a minute ago the tracking. Does that do that through GPS or does it do it through cell phone like triangulation? How's that work?
It is GPS. Yeah.
Okay.
And we built it inside all the telematics inside the fob, and we can track live all the way up to just having it print into our server once a day. It just depends on what the customer would like. Then once the fob is pushed or the SOS is activated, Todd, then we track the unit every 10 seconds until the event's closed off, and then we reset it.
Okay. Yeah, I think that was probably a really dumb question, because if you're having a heart attack, you're going to need to know exactly where you're at, and you just can't do that through cell phone towers. You got to have GPS for that. So
right.
Yeah. All right. So let's just be clear here. If you run into a situation, say some suspicious characters are walking towards you, you just reach down and hold that switch for 3 seconds. Is that right? Yep.
The fob is ergonomically designed, and then the big silver SOS buttons on the front, and they'll just hold it down. It's very discreet. It's silent. And once it vibrates, they know the signal's sent. And then the features, if some companies or some drivers don't want to escalate a situation, so they don't really need our two-way voice to kick in our monitoring center to ask them mm-hmm. if they need help, we'll just simply dispatch. So we can program and customize that to a straight dispatch if they don't want the two-way voice to come on.
Oh, okay. So the driver can specify that, like when he sets up the device, basically.
That's right.
Okay, I want two-way or the other. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. Well, that kind of is cool, because like I assume there's no penalty. Like if you got a couple shady characters walking at you across the parking lot, and it ends up being nothing, and they just walk right on past you, then you can just say, "Oh, it was nothing," and there's no penalty or anything like that, and they haven't dispatched anybody out.
Exactly. Yeah, we have false alarms, and that's fine. We actually have a couple instances of that, and we put the audio files on our website for drivers to know how we handle a false alarm, and there's no problem, no fee whatsoever. They can push that as many times as they need it, and our folks will answer and help.
Yeah. This seems really handy, like in today's world, it seems like every other day we're getting a story on the trucking websites and everything about some driver being attacked or, some driver being killed in his truck or something like that. And it just seems like a more apt, there's not been a more apt time to have some kind of a safety device on you.
Yeah, I think it's just the world we live in, and it's not getting any easier. And there's various ways inside a cab that there's SOS alarms, whether it's through their OmniTrax or PeopleNet. But the beauty of ours is it's mobile. So they can be inside a warehouse, they can be inside a Walmart, they can be inside the back of the cab. And that's where a lot of these issues happen, especially medical instances. So the mobility of this and the flexibility thereof is what makes this wonderful.
Yeah, because it's far more likely that you're going to be inside, maybe helping load a trailer or something if you're going to have a heart attack than just sitting behind the cab, behind the steering wheel. So
that's right.
Yeah.
And your audience needs to know the programming and the speed in which the real help gets delivered is 40 seconds. It doesn't go back to the corporate dispatch and dispatch needs to then validate with the driver if he's okay. This is emergencies. They push the button, help's on the way.
Yeah, and that's 24/7, obviously.
That is true. No question about it. We have 3 monitoring stations that are answering calls all day, one in South Carolina, one in Michigan, and one in Tracy, California.
Okay. Is there a particular reason why you spread them out like that, or is it just...
Yeah, it provides redundancy.
Oh, okay.
If you look at any catastrophic storms, whether it be snow or hurricanes or, we're getting a lot of those. If you're located in one area, you're subject to going down and not being able to cover. So we spread them out across the country in areas that we feel are somewhat temperate, that are not going to be subjected to, like a Houston, what happened this summer.
Right. Yeah.
I think the best way to explain that is that it has redundancy, and that means if South Carolina is down, the phones roll to Michigan and California and vice versa.
Yeah, contingency plans kind of seem like it might be right up your alley. I was looking at your website, and you guys have a lot of military people that are behind this company, don't you? It looks like you could take on a small country and take them down when I looked at, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we're proud of that. We have all 5 branches of the military represented in our office, from retired 2-star Navy admirals to Army Rangers to Coast Guard, Marines. So we...
Yeah, I noticed you had some bigwigs in there. I was like, these aren't grunts. A lot of these guys aren't the grunts. These are some big dogs. Yeah.
No, safety's in their DNA, and they're retired now, and this is what we do. So.
Yeah. Well, how did the idea of this product come along?
Well, I've been in this business helping provide tools and technology, source them, engineer them, find a fit for the last 5.5 years. And I've created 2 or 3 different technologies, this one being the most recent. And I was put together with Admiral Ray, who is our CEO, a year and a half ago now. And I presented the idea to him. He also runs a company called Blue Star Honor Care, and they help aging in place seniors with all sorts of technology.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And we roughed out a business plan, and I sourced the product, and here we are 15 months later helping a whole bunch of truck drivers.
Yeah, that's great. You find one use for a product, and then you think, well, where can we branch this out to somebody else who needs it? So that's pretty cool.
Right.
Okay. So who are you focusing on for this plan? Are you focusing on individuals? You're trying to get into fleet owners' hands? Who are you focusing on? Or
both.
Both.
Good question. Both. Yeah, we love to work with corporations, safety directors, and security directors that are looking for another tool to lean forward on for their W-2 drivers. But we've got a lot of individuals that want to make this decision on their own, owner operators and alike. So we try to market to both. Owner operators is a much larger market. I think there's 2.9 million of the 3.5 million drivers out there that are owner operators. So just a little harder audience to reach, and that's why we're thrilled that we're able to do this with you to try and reach a few more.
Yeah, well, I'm glad I can help. This seems like it'd be an ideal device for women. I actually noticed on your website that's one of the endorsements comes from Women in Trucking.
You're right. Yeah, we're very close with Women in Trucking. Ellen Voya is the president there. She's done a wonderful job for over 10 years now, trying to in all verticals of the industry, let women enter. And they do a wonderful job of that. So we're a partner with them. And you're right. Anything that we can provide for a lady that makes them feel even a little bit safer at those truck stops or wherever they are out on the routes is beneficial. Some ladies in the past have actually brought their pets along to kind of protect them. This Citadel Escort has picked up a pretty good reputation with lady drivers for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's just one of the problems with women entering the trucking industry is that I think a lot of times they just don't think they can do the job and they're outnumbered by men, but also the fact that they got the whole personal safety thing to worry about that. I think a lot of guys feel like they don't have that problem, but they probably do. I mean, if the other guy's got a gun or whatever, it don't matter how tough of a trucker you think you are, you're in some trouble,
right. Right.
And, heart attack, killed Jim Fix back in the 70s. So, and he was a runner, so nobody's safe. I think I heard you say one time that, on another interview that, everything seems fine with your health until it isn't,
Yeah. I think I was on the Road Dog Trucking show and they asked, and that's the way we are, or truckers are, or that's just the way we're put together. And we tend to just feel fine until we're not, or we feel safe until we're not. And then we're forced to say, oh boy, I wish I had that tool.
Yeah, I can see that. I noticed also on the website that you're also endorsed by American Trucking Association and OOIDA.
We're big fans of both of those organizations. So yes, you'll see us out and about at various trade shows and trying to support them as much as we can. We don't do a whole lot of outbound marketing. We really try to reach corporations through word of mouth as best we can, but those are a couple of organizations we feel very fondly of. Yeah,
that's cool. Okay, so Jim, you mentioned that the price of this thing was $22 a month, but when I look on your website, it says $29 a month. So you're offering a special discount to TruckerDump listeners, is that right?
That's right. Yeah, we'd like to work with you and your audience and drop that to $22 a month. Yes.
Okay, folks, and the way you're going to do that is go over to citadelfleet.com, and there's a customer login button in the upper right-hand corner. Click that, and there's going to be a password area. Type in TruckerDump, all lowercase for that. And what that's going to get you is $22 a month for the price. That's not just for a limited time. That's for however long you want to use the unit. That's right?
Absolutely right.
Okay. That's awesome that you offer a discount. I really appreciate that. And I hope everybody does that and takes advantage of it.
Wonderful.
So where can they get the device? Just on your website? Is that right now?
Yes. CitadelFleet.com. And there's all sorts of really good information there and educational stuff, videos and some articles that'll help your folks get educated.
Yep, got a good little video there. You got a interview with Road Dog that was pretty good also. Okay, and another way you can contact Citadel is by good old-fashioned phone. Gotta love that. The phone number there is 800-269-5905. You guys are also Citadel Fleet on Twitter, is that right?
At Citadel Fleet, that's right.
At Citadel Fleet. Okay, so all you TruckerDump listeners, get over there, check out Citadel Fleet Safety's Escort, and if you need it, buy one.
Sounds good.
Okay, good to talk to you tonight, Jim.
All right, bud. Thanks so much. Have a great night, and we'll talk soon.
Okay, bye. Well, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed that interview. Thanks to Jim for coming on the show and explaining the Escort a little bit more. I also appreciate Citadel Fleet Safety working with me and my weird schedule and the delay in the podcast coming out. I was really hoping to have this out by the end of February, but it just couldn't happen. We had some scheduling issues and just didn't have enough time to do it. Actually, when I recorded that podcast, I was actually at home, which is very, very strange because the evil overlord doesn't like me doing stuff like that at home. When I'm home, I'm only home for like 3 days a month, so she really wants my attention while I'm there. But she is in school. She had a class for a few hours one night, and I took the opportunity and hooked up with Jim on that. Sat there in my closet, my little makeshift recording studio, and did that interview. So there is one thing that has actually changed from the interview. There's one extra step to actually go and purchase the device. You go to citadelfleet.com. That's CITADELFLEET.com. Like we mentioned, you go to the customer login in the upper right-hand corner, and there's one extra step here. You just have to click on the TruckerDump logo before you add the password of TruckerDump, all one word, all lowercase, and then you will get that discount. So go on over there and check it out. I will also put a link to all of this stuff in the show notes, and I also wrote up a special sponsored blog post about this device, and you can go check that out too. Link in the show notes. And once again, I would like to thank Citadel Fleet Safety for sponsoring this episode of TruckerDump. Hey, do y'all remember when I was bragging so much about how fast I was going to be at editing this podcast whenever I got this new Hindenburg Journalist software? Well, I actually have it now. I bought the Pro version. It was on sale, $75 off. So I bought it on World Radio Day. I have to tell you, this is a learning curve. I know it's going to be faster in the long run, but boy, in the short term, getting used to this thing and getting all the new shortcuts down, the keyboard shortcuts and everything, really messed with me. That 22-minute interview I did with Jim, it was actually, I think, 46, and I cut it down. Cutting that much time out of that interview took me 6 hours. Yes, 6 hours to do a 22-minute segment. To be fair, though, I made the classic mistake of having my headphones playing his audio too loud. I've been warned about this left and right, but it just never quite sunk in, and I didn't realize. So what was happening was, as he was talking into the headphones, it was so loud that it was bleeding back into my microphone. So I had his voice and my voice on my track, and it was not good. It was really hard to edit. So hopefully I won't make that mistake in the future. But anyway, just thought you'd like to know that I got the new software, working on it. Things are going to be faster eventually, but for right now, man, it's a pain in the butt. I am loving this new software, though. I can tell you so far that the noise reduction feature itself is paying off. I have had all kinds of noise going on today. Trucks going by, backup beepers, trucks parking next to me. Right now I got a guy, some Arab guy next door to me is playing some really loud Arabic style music, and it's really loud, and I can't hear any of it in the playback. So money well spent. Anyway, enough of the behind the scenes stuff. I know some of you guys probably enjoy that, and some of you just wish I would shut up and move on. So that's what I'm going to do. You're welcome. Next up, I want to mention an app. Jim and I were just talking about all these medical emergencies and stuff that can happen out here on the road. Maybe you come across an accident and you go up to try to help. Well, honestly, I wouldn't have the foggiest freaking idea what to do in an accident. Just probably 3 weeks ago or so, it was not long before I went home. I was driving through Ottawa, Kansas, right through the middle of town, and this car just started coming over into my lane it was coming directly at me, coming over into my lane, and he just kept going. Same speed, never braked whatsoever, slammed right into this huge oak tree and leveled it in somebody's front yard. I was not the first on scene. There was 2 other cars on scene, and in a weird twist of fate, I went on around, got to Sears where I was delivering, and just a few minutes later, the first guy who was on scene showed up, and it was actually the manager of the Sears. So he had said the guy had fallen asleep, and he was okay and everything. But what if he wasn't? What if they didn't have airbags and he wasn't fine? I wouldn't have a clue what to do because I am just stupid about first aid stuff. I think the last CPR class I had was in high school. I don't remember anything about it. Well, I think I was listening to a Stuff You Should Know podcast, and they mentioned this app. And it's actually the Red Cross First Aid app. And it's available on Android and iOS, so go check that out and download that. It was a fairly small download, if I remember correctly. But, for instance, you go in here, they got a Spanish version also. You can switch to Spanish inside the app. But it's a really cool app that just kind of goes through and tells you how to deal with certain things. Like, for instance, if I click on a heart attack, it goes through and it explains what the symptoms are. It says that I should call 911, that I should give them an aspirin and make them chew it if they can, so to get in their system faster, to sit them up, get them in a comfortable position. And then down below it says related first aid, unresponsive in breathing. So if, they're unresponsive in breathing, you can just click on that, And then below that is an FAQ section. So what is a heart attack? What's the difference between a heart attack and a cardiac arrest? So later on, when I'm contemplating helping the person out, I could look back and say, what is the difference? I don't really know. It's just a really handy app that I'm going to keep on my phone. I mean, it covers everything, heart attacks, strokes, seizures, epilepsy, strokes, just all kinds of stuff. Even, like flu, and choking, and what to do, if somebody's bleeding. It's just a really cool app. It's a free app, so that's awesome. So go check that out. Get that on your phone today, just in case, because you just never know. That, once again, that is the Red Cross First Aid app, and I will put a link in the show notes. Hey, next up, I wanted to remind you that I asked for anyone who had access to photos of trucks and trucking related stuff. I'm always needing photos for blog posts and things like that. And it's really hard to find stuff that people will let you use for free. I don't have any problem giving credit. I like to give credit to someone. I can point them at your website or whatever, or your Flickr account, whatever. But so far, only one person has offered their help, and that was Matt from TruckBlocks. That's truckblocks.com, and that is spelled TruckBlocks. And that is a really cool app it's coming out eventually. It's a really good idea, and I'll just save that because I'm going to have Matt on the show to talk about that app eventually. But anyway, for now, you can just check out TruckBlocks on Twitter, Facebook. He's in all the normal places. And thanks to Matt for offering those photos, and I will certainly have a look at those. I should say one other person has offered to help and is helping me some. My friend Shannon over in the TruckerDump Slack group. He's also in the iTrucker Slack group. You can join those groups, by the way, by emailing for TruckerDump. Just email me at truckerdump@gmail.com. If you're a Mac lover or an Apple lover, like an iPhone person, and you're a trucker, also you can email itruckers@icloud.com to get an invite to that. We'd love to have you in over there. But anyway, I digress. Shannon has a drone, and I have been getting him to kind of directing him on kind of shots that I'm interested in getting, and he's done his best to get me some of those. Hasn't always had the best weather conditions to deal with it, but I'm hoping to get some cool shots out of that. Hopefully I'll be able to show you some of those one day. I'm thinking about using one of those on a new website I've got coming out soon. Tease. Anyway. All right. Speaking of Chris just a second ago, he's responsible for our next segment.
It was is a bottle of your finest champagne, 5 shrimp cocktails, and some bread for my brother.
What's that?
Sushi.
Sushi?
Boy, some chicken wings have really hit the spot.
This is a tasty burger.
Don't play with your food, eat it.
All right, I've decided to name this segment Trucker Grub. It's a little hard to say, but I needed small words to fit onto the navigation of my website, and that's what I come up with. So there you go. So, Chris, take it away.
Hi, this is driver Chris Mack. I've been avoiding doing this because I really hate the sound of my recorded voice. But Todd's been relentless. And since I'm probably going to be at one of the places I like to stop for a Mexican restaurant tonight, I thought I'd share it with you. If you happen to be on the Ohio Turnpike or heading east out of Chicago, stop at exit 72 in South Bend, Indiana. That's off I-80. Across from the Pilot is another small truck stop. I believe it's the Speedway. Or you can park at the Pilot and walk across the street. There is a Mexican restaurant and a little shopping center over beside that truck stop. They have pretty good Mexican food, and it's where I first had a Corona Rita and learned to love having Corona and margarita together.
All right, Chris, thanks for submitting that. Just for the record, I would like everyone to know that I have no guilt or shame whatsoever in badgering Chris into doing this. Just think, if you join the TruckerDump Slack group, you too could be the subject of my badgering. Anyway, Chris has always been paranoid about his voice, and I'm trying to get him over it. Everybody hates hearing their own voice, in a recording. So I'm glad he got over it. So anyway, he was nervous, so I'm going to give him a little break here because he completely forgot to mention the name of the restaurant, but he got everything else perfectly right. The name of the restaurant is, and let me first apologize to every Hispanic person out there listening for this. The name of the restaurant is El Arriero. I hope that's right. Quite honestly, I looked it up for the pronunciation, and then I looked up the definition, and the name really doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Arriero means muleteer, as in someone who drives mules. So, not sure what that has to do with eating at a Mexican food restaurant. But anyway, if they got Corona Ritas, it sounds like a place I might want to go. By the way, I've still never had one of those, but Chris swears by them. Loves them. Puts pictures of his Mexican food and his Corona Ritas all the time in the Slack group. So if you want to see that, head on over there. And thanks, Chris, for doing this. I really appreciate it. So, hey, you're next. If you've got a favorite restaurant, place you like to eat that you can easily get to in a truck or from a short walk from truck parking, please let me know. Email TruckerDump@gmail.com. Again, this is audio only, so don't send me your text. I want audio only. Keep it about 3 minutes or less. You can see Chris's was much less than that, but hey, I'm not going to complain about it. I did badger him into doing it. So anyway, send them in. Trucker Grub is the thing. And hey, I'm going to have this on my website in the navigation bar, Trucker Grub, and I'll have directions to all these different places. And if I forgot to name my website, it is abouttruckdriving.com. Sometimes I just assume everyone knows that when, well, honestly, Google doesn't even know it. All right, let's move on. Man, this is going to be a long episode. I would apologize, but I know you guys don't mind. So, this first resource is actually something very helpful. It's called Amazing Tips on How to Avoid the Most Dreaded Truckers' Occupational Diseases. And it's from AnsterTrailer.com. I'll put a link in the show notes to that. This covers a lot of the diseases and ailments that truckers normally run across in the course of their lifetime just because of our lifestyle and our job, and it tells you how to prevent it and some of the symptoms of it and stuff like that. It's a really good website, so go check that out. Again, that's AnsterTrailer.com, and I'll put a link in the show notes to the specific article here. Next up, I wanted to talk about an app that is a game. I haven't done this in quite a while, and quite honestly, well, I've been considering adding more games in here, just a little games here I discover now and then, but this one has taken over my life. So I'm not really sure if it's a good thing to tell you about it or not. The thing is, it's like not one of these big games that is, you know, all encompassing and it's so complicated and so complex and serious. It's just a silly little game that for some reason mesmerizes me every time I play it. Okay, the name of this is called Ballz. Okay, all you 12 and 13-year-old minds, go ahead and laugh. Ballz. Okay, anyway, it's available on iOS and Android. It's spelled BLLZ, and it's made by a company called Ketchapp, like ketchup, only Ketchapp. Get it? Anyway, they make a lot of just simple little games like this. Let me describe this game. Basically, there's like these squares that come down randomly off the top of the screen. And you're at the bottom and you shoot a ball at it. That's how it starts. At first, you just get one ball. Eventually, you can hit these other little targets and it will like drop other balls. And so eventually you will build up more and more balls, which is necessary because in the beginning, each one of those squares might only take 1 or 2 hits to make it vanish. But eventually, as you go along, these, like, at the point I'm at in the game right now, some of these things dropping down like require 300 to get rid of it. 300 hits on one square, and that's just one of the squares. Now, you think this sounds impossible, but it's not. It's a well-paced game. The thing I really like about it is you can just jump in and jump out of it. So if you're sitting at a shipper and you know you've got, 30 minutes or something like that, and you don't really want to get involved with anything, like I can't record a podcast in 30 minutes, and I honestly can't get in the frame of mind to even start doing it in 30 minutes. So a game like this is just perfect. In the beginning, when you've only got one ball, you pull it down, you shoot it, it takes less than a second, literally. As you go along, when you get more and more balls, it takes a little bit longer, but even when you got 200 balls and you're shooting it, it doesn't take that long. It might take, 10 or 15 seconds per play. And if it's just only hitting one thing or not hitting anything at all, it's actually got a little fast forward button up there so you can make it even go faster. It's just a great game to pop in and out of. You can play it for a really long time if you want to. Just keep going and keep going. But you can also just pop in and out of it. And I just love that about that. Right now, my score is 328, which I never thought I would get that high. And it took me a long time to get that high over the course of time. But something about the game. It's the sound the balls make and the way they bounce off of everything and ricochet. It's just a really awesome game. I highly recommend it. If you're really good at pool, like shooting angles and stuff like that, you'll be really good at this game. I'm not all that great at that stuff, I don't think, but my nephews are impressed with my score, so maybe I'm better than I think I am about it. Either that or maybe I just have more time to play the game than they do. Either way, check that out. Again, it's available on Android and iOS, and the game is called Ballz with a Z. Hee hee. Thanks to East Insurance Group for sponsoring this podcast. Check them out at eastinsurancegroup.com or give them a call at 443-304-9927. Listen, we all need insurance. I'm sure nobody, probably not even insurance agents, like to pay for insurance, but we all need it. East Insurance Group can cover all of your needs. They have commercial auto, commercial truck, commercial property, homeowners, business insurance, auto insurance. They've got you covered. All you have to do is give them a call for a free quote. It's really super simple. Just call them or use the contact form on their website. They're going to listen to you. They're going to find out what you need. They're going to make suggestions, and then they're going to get you a quote, usually in less than 24 hours, and get you all set up and ready to go. And even cooler, they're going to give you their personal phone number so you can call them anytime you need them, which, of course, you know, when you hit a deer, it's going to be the middle of the freaking night, right? Okay. Now, maybe you're thinking you've got this insurance thing licked. You know, maybe you've had the same agent for a long time and you're just comfortable in where you're at. Well, why not call and double check it? I mean, if you were going in for surgery, you'd want a second opinion, right? Maybe you've been paying rates that are ridiculous because you just haven't checked in a while. I know personally, I got a call from my insurance agent not too long ago out of the blue that said, hey, we just discovered we could save you $200 by switching to this other company. And I was like, what? So, it never hurts to check. So I'm thinking you should give East Insurance Group a call right now. Again, that phone number is 443-304-9927. And when you do, tell them you heard about them on the TruckerDump podcast. Thanks to East Insurance Group for sponsoring this episode of TruckerDump. All right, let's get on with the main topic today. As many of you know, I have been really trying to get the word out to truckers about podcasts in general. Not just my podcast, but podcasts in general, because I really think they're missing out on a huge opportunity, a lot of free, good content. So that's what this post is all about. It may seem kind of meta in a way, because if you're listening to this podcast, you already know about podcasts, but this is really written more for the people who are reading this. So just bear with me, because I don't have enough content all the time to have separate posts for the podcast and the blog. I'm trying to convince the people on the blog to start listening to the podcast, because it's just so much more fun. And it's just a better experience, in my opinion. But hey, I guess I'm a bit biased. Anyway, let's get on with this. I called this Why Podcasts Are the Best Media for Truckers. Strap in, because it's a long one. We truckers spend the majority of our workday alone. Some consider this to be a curse, but in my opinion, and probably most truckers' opinions, it's one of the little-known perks of being a truck driver. We literally have up to 11 hours of driving time to kill each day. This is time we can listen to anything we want. Today I'm going to point you to some free audio content for truckers that you may not know about. But first, let's discuss how most truckers occupy themselves on these long stretches of road. The first is talking on the phone. Now, I've never been a big phone talker, but in recent years I've made some pretty good friends through social media and the TruckerDump blog and podcast that I can talk to them for hours on end. Just be sure when you're doing this, you're talking hands-free. The fine for truckers using a handset is up to $2,750. Padow. So what are the pros of talking on the phone? Well, phone time flies by, and it's basically free with the unlimited call plans most carriers provide now. It also makes you feel less alone when you talk to friends and family on a regular basis. The cons are if you're somehow still stuck using a prepaid phone or a limited call plan, you'll run through your minutes quicker than truck stop chili dog shoots past your colon. Talking can also be a distraction, so make sure you aren't doing it when you're in heavy traffic. For me, the biggest con is that I lose my voice if I talk for that long. Seriously, when you're alone as much as most truckers are, your vocal cords just don't get that much use. And when they do, you pay for it. Another popular time waster is music. There are few things I love more than jamming to some excellent tunes and singing at the top of my lungs while I'm all alone. Heck, I even said that all the way back in TruckerDump number 6, which was called Life is Good. Link in the show notes to that if you haven't heard that one all the way back when. Believe it or not, there are still drivers out here rocking flip phones. Thankfully, truck manufacturers are still installing CD players in their factory-installed radios. It's still a bit weird for me to see a guy with a bunch of CDs on his sun visor. Heck, even crazier, I still see truckers with cassette tapes. What the heck is up with that? Many drivers now use some sort of digital media player like their smartphone or an old iPod Touch to store and play their music. Internet-based subscription services like Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, and iHeartRadio are all the rage now too. The pros are music can make the time go by quick, and it can make it more fun, too. The cons are that it can really be distracting if your driver's seat dancing to by Heatwave, or playing air drums to Lenny Kravitz's Not that I would know anything about that. And even worse than talking on the phone, you're going to lose your voice if you're wailing "How we touched and went our separate ways" by Journey, or worse, attempting to sing in the same octave as Sharon Den Adele in Within Temptation's "Stand my ground, I won't give in." Not that I would know anything about that either. Music can also get expensive if you buy a lot of it, whether you're buying digital music from iTunes or Amazon, buying CDs, or subscribing to one of the music streaming services. You need to watch your data usage with these streaming services too. Unlike unlimited talk time, not everyone has unlimited data plans. Those suckers are pricey. I might add that if you're one of those people who download free music from the internet because it should be free, then do yourself a favor and run a virus check on your computer, because you undoubtedly need it. And hey, also ask your company if it's okay for you to work for free for the next year or so, because clearly you think it's okay for a person to work hard at something without getting paid for it. Wow, I didn't even see that person lift me up and prop that soapbox underneath me. Glad they did, though. Next up is audiobooks. The evil overlord, my wife and ex-co-driver, was really into audiobooks, so by proxy, I was too. When we were on the road together, we used to rent lots of audiobooks on cassette tapes or CDs from truck stops. While it was pretty cool that we could rent at one truck stop and return at a different one, we really don't need those kiosks anymore, which is good because they've gone the way of parachute pants. Pros of audiobooks are, well, again, like music, they'll make your driving time fly faster than any other thing I've tried, especially fiction. Let's face it, talking to your wife on the phone while she tells you about her latest trip to the hair salon can get a tad bit boring. But getting wrapped up in a fictional world, well, there's something special about that. Another great thing is that you can sometimes get audiobooks for free at your local library. Just be sure you can return them on time. The last thing you need is an old hag librarian chasing you around with a yardstick. The cons of audiobooks is if you're not getting audiobooks from your library, they can be costly. This is especially true if you're picky. Libraries don't often have the best selection, but services like Audible.com do. Isn't that convenient? For $14.95 per month, you get 1 credit, that's usually 1 book worth, per month. The problem with this is it only whets your appetite and you want another one. A trucker could easily go through an average size audiobook in 1 day. What now? You've used your monthly quota in 1 stinking day. So you buy more audiobooks from Audible until your next credit arrives. Cha-ching! The next way to waste time on the road is the CB radio. Now, personally, I'd rather get a Brazilian bikini wax from a guy named Ivan than talk on the CB for any length of time. But that's just me. The pros of the CB is it's one of the first things every trucker buys, so it's basically free from then on. And secondly, nope, sorry, that's all I got. As for the cons, well, jeez, where do I start? I guess we start with the signal. Most CBs aren't going to reach out further than 3 to 5 miles. You might get 10 or 15 if you had a high-end radio and a direct line of sight. My CB is an out-of-tune piece of junk, so I can maybe get 1 mile out if I'm having a really good day. Secondly, fewer drivers are on the CB radio nowadays. So if you do find someone interesting, you'd better hope they're heading the same direction as you, or else you're going to be quickly out of range. And thirdly, there's a lot of immaturity on the CB, especially in traffic backups. If you want to hear grown men calling each other stupid, racial slurs, cursing, perverts calling out to lady truckers, and for some strange reason, guys whispering, "I ain't got no panties on," then the CB is your new home. Weirdo. How about this one? Terrestrial radio. Pretty much every truck on the planet has an AM/FM radio installed. Yet it sometimes appears to me that the manufacturer forgets to install an antenna. Maybe it's just my trucks, I don't know. The pros of this kind of radio, it's free and you can almost always find a radio station, even way out in the boonies. There's a decent variety of musical genres available on FM, and you can find some interesting talk radio programs on the AM side. The cons of terrestrial radio are FM repeats the same songs in a seemingly never-ending loop. Also, the signal is pretty short range. AM has longer range, but it focuses more on talk radio. Now, if that's not your thing, well, tough noogies. Even with the longer range of AM, you'll often find that signal becomes a problem. Anyone who has listened to overnight AM knows that just as soon as that paranoid weirdo starts explaining to the overnight host how the anal probe process went, that's when your signal goes to crap. Bummer. I mean, who doesn't like to hear about a good anal probe, right? The last thing I like to point out is that you're stuck with whatever they dish up, at whatever time they wish to serve it up. Like the Bob and Tom show? Well, if you're driving at night or sitting in rush hour in the wrong city, you're flat out of luck. And even if you do catch the show, there's no way to fast forward or rewind if you need to quit listening for a bit. How about the satellite radio? Sirius XM radio is really the only option here, so no need to look any further. Let's just jump right into the pros and cons. Unlike terrestrial radio, the signal only goes away when you have something like a tunnel or a building overhead. There's also lots of listening options with over 140 channels of sports, talk, comedy, entertainment, news, and all kinds of musical genres, including some you probably didn't even know existed. Many of them are commercial free, too. You can even get the official channels of all the big sports leagues. That's pretty cool. Now, believe it or not, I used to listen to 6 hours of PGA golf coverage every day from Thursday to Sunday. Yeah, I'm well aware my cool factor just plummeted. Not that it was ever really soaring in the first place, am I right? The cons of XM are the service isn't free. The packages start at $11 per month for their mostly music plan and go all the way up to $21 for all the channels. The receiver and antenna may not be free either. Some of the newer trucks have Sirius XM built into the truck stereo, but if not, you're looking at a decent chunk of change just for the hardware. Lastly, much like terrestrial radio, you're in large part stuck with what they choose to air. You can change the channel if you don't like what's on, so I guess that's something. But there is no fast forward or rewind. Unlike terrestrial radio, at least now you can catch some of your shows later if you miss them. For instance, the Howard Stern Show airs a couple times a day, and if you still miss it, SiriusXM has a pretty cool app that you can stream the show over the internet anytime you want. Now, not all shows have this option, though. And again, you have to remember this is going to use up your cell phone's data plan. But it's better than missing your favorite show altogether. I was using XM radio before they merged with Sirius. Now back then there was no such thing as time shifting, which is the term used to describe consuming content at a different time than when it actually airs. So, if I wasn't awake for my golf tournament, I just didn't get to listen that day. Yeah, I know, it's a travesty. I got fed up with paying for a service that didn't let me listen to programs I wanted to hear when I wanted to hear them. That's when I found some free audio content for truckers. So, what is this free audio content and how do you get it? Well, if you're reading this right now, which obviously you aren't if you're listening to the podcast, sorry, here we go into weirdo area. Anyway, it says, well, if you choose to click the shiny play button at the top of this article instead of reading this, you already know the answer. Podcasts are the best media for truckers. First, I should define what a podcast is. Now, I know some of you out there are shaking your heads, especially you guys listening. But trust me, this is needed. In a push to promote the TruckerDump podcast, I've been walking up to truckers at truck stops and asking if they know what a podcast is. Most of them look at me like I've got a pink porcupine crawling out of my left nostril. Seriously, out of about 100 drivers I've spoken to so far, a good 90 of them have no idea what a podcast is. Most of those have never even heard the term before. Maybe 7 out of 10 think they know what a podcast is, but they're way off when I ask them to describe it. Only 3 truckers I've spoken to actively listen to podcasts. 3! But guess what? All 3 love listening to podcasts. So what's that tell you? So what is a podcast officially? Well, a podcast is a digital audio file made available on the internet for downloading to a computer or mobile device, typically available as a series, new installments of which can be received by subscribers automatically. Now, let me put it in Todd Trucker terms. Podcasts are basically radio shows that you can download or stream from the internet. The vast majority of podcasts are free. There are some video podcasts available, but most of them are audio only. Now, I know some of you non-technical people are already freaking out, so let me show you how easy this is before you go curl up in a ball in a corner of a cold, wet shower stall. Here's how this works. First, let's figure out how you download a podcast. Well, you need a smartphone or a computer. There's no getting around that. I highly recommend doing this on your smartphone to keep things simple. You can listen to podcasts directly from your computer simply by going to iTunes or Google Play, searching for podcasts, and clicking play. But you'll have better luck using a smartphone. Not to mention, your phone is mobile. Your computer, not so much. The iPhone comes with a podcast app pre-installed. In Apple's ever so annoying fashion, they called it Podcasts. Vague much, Apple? Look for a purple icon with a weird-looking man on it. For you Android users, I've been recommending Podcast Addict. It's a free app that just has a small ad banner along the bottom. And if you wind up liking the app but hate ads, you can purchase the brilliantly named Podcast Addict Donate. Yes, that's really the name. It's $2.99 to get the ad-free version. Just search for that in your Google Play Store. You can also find podcasts on Stitcher and TuneIn Radio, but they usually have limited features. My advice is to stick with a true podcast app for the best listening experience. Okay, how do you find a podcast to listen to? You know, it's really pretty simple. You know how you search for apps to install on your phone? It's the same idea, only you're searching for podcasts from within your podcast app. First, you open your podcast app. In it, you'll see a way to search. In the Apple Podcast app, it's a spyglass in the lower right-hand corner. In Podcast Addict, there's a big box that says Search. Duh. In the search field, type anything you have an interest in. Sports, travel, science, news, comedy, gaming, health, music, or heck, even trucking. Do the search and find a podcast that looks interesting. Tap it, and then tap subscribe. Find the podcast in your app, and all the available episodes will show up. Find the play symbol or the word download and start listening. To add more podcasts, you can repeat the process or you can find other ways to search, such as categories, genres, or popular podcasts. Tap the new podcast you find, subscribe, and listen. It's really that easy. Now, I would like to quickly address the word subscribe. This freaks a lot of people out, basically because when you subscribe to something, there's usually a monthly fee involved. But trust me here. If a very rare podcast is going to want money for you to subscribe, you'll know it immediately. So don't worry about the word subscribe. 99.9% of podcasts are free. That's a guess, by the way. Don't quote me on that. So, why are podcasts the perfect audio content for truckers? Well, first of all, they're free. You know, I think you might need me to say that again. Free, free, free. But there are lots of other reasons why podcasts are the best media for truckers. Podcasts let you listen when you want. For those of you hearing the term podcast for the first time, think of a podcast like a TV show you record on your digital video recorder, or DVR. When was the last time you missed your favorite TV show? My guess, probably a long time, because you don't have to be at a specific place at a specific time anymore. Even truckers gone for weeks at a time can record their TV shows and binge watch them when they get home. Now that you have all these podcasts on your phone, you can play them whenever you want. What are you in the mood for today? Sports talk? Technology? Science? Trivia? You can pick anything you've downloaded. No more are you the slave of a radio program director who tells you what you're going to listen to and when you're going to do it. Podcasts also let you download and save episodes whenever you want. Let's go back to our comparison of podcasts and DVRs. Now, I'm guessing you've probably got your DVR set to automatically record The Walking Dead, right? Podcasts are like that too, only instead of recording the podcast you're interested in, you're simply telling your podcast app to download new episodes. This is where podcast apps prevail. Most of them have a lot of settings. How do you want to automatically download new episodes? Do you want to wait until you're on free Wi-Fi? There's a setting for that. As soon as the app sees you're on Wi-Fi, it'll automatically download new episodes. Or maybe you've got an unlimited cell data plan. In that case, you can tell it to automatically download new episodes as soon as they publish. A notification will let you know there's a new episode available. Or heck, maybe you don't want anything to download automatically. You can choose that option and download each one manually if that's how you roll. I actually do a combination of these. Because I don't have unlimited data, my podcast app is set to only use Wi-Fi. But Pocket Casts, which is my preferred app, it's only $3.99 on iOS or Android. That app will let me override that setting with just a couple of taps. You see, a few of the podcasts I listen to are related to current events, so I choose to use my cell data to download or stream, that's listen without saving to your device, them immediately using cellular. But the vast majority of the podcasts I listen to aren't time sensitive at all. That means I can wait until I'm home where I can download a whole bunch of episodes from different podcasts. Or hey, if you're on the road, you can also use free Wi-Fi at places you might deliver, like Home Depot or Sam's Club, to stock up on a few episodes. And of course, there's always Starbucks if you can find a place to park a semi nearby. They always have fast Wi-Fi, and they don't care if you sit around for hours. I always seem to download way more episodes than I can possibly listen to, but that's the beauty of podcasts. I always have a wide variety at my tips, and if I start one that doesn't interest me, I can just delete it and move on. I mean, who cares? I haven't spent any money on them. Podcasts also let you have total playback control. This is one of the things that is most awesome about podcasts. Again, much like your DVR, you can skip forward or back in your podcast. Here's some scenarios where you might want to skip forward or back. Maybe you pull up a toll booth. You can just tap the pause button and resume whenever you're back on your way. You can even come back to the podcast in a week or so and your place will still be saved. Or maybe you don't have an interest in the subject the hosts are talking about. You can tap a button to fast forward 30 seconds. Got a long-winded host going on and on about a product you aren't interested in? Tap that button quickly 4 times to fast forward 2 minutes. Did all that fast forwarding make you miss something important that the guest said? Easy. Tap the rewind 15 seconds button. In some podcast apps, these fast forward rewind times can even be set to your preferred time interval. Also, certain podcast apps will let you set a start time. For instance, if you know that a particular podcast doesn't really get started until the 3-minute mark or so, you can have the episode start at the 3-minute mark. And these settings can be different for each show you listen to. Cool, huh? And obviously, just like your DVR, you can skip commercials too. But hey, on the subject of skipping ads, let me say up front that the TruckerDump having sponsors on the show has nothing to do with what I'm about to say. I'll be honest, I skip some advertisements too. But before you go skipping commercials, let me tell you something about podcast advertising. I actually enjoy most podcast advertising. It's hard to believe, but it's true. I swear. Hear me out. Podcast advertising isn't always just listening to some bored podcaster read a script. Sure, some might read it, but the thing is, I'll often learn something new with each new ad read. This is how I hope to implement advertising into the TruckerDump podcast. So y'all will want to listen to all of them, buy their product or service, and keep both them and my wallet happy. I think David Sparks and Katie Floyd from the Mac Power Users are probably the best at this. When they tell you about an app or a service they're promoting, they'll often teach you something new along the way. I've heard about 1 million ads for an app called Text Expander from Smile Software. I've owned it for years, but I still learn new tricks to use it when I hear their ads. That's why I rarely skip a Text Expander ad. Now, back to me skipping ads. I always listen to new advertisers for a while. Once I figure it out it's the same read every time or it's simply not something I'm ever going to buy, that's when I start skipping them. But every once in a while I listen to another one to see if it's changed. Sorry for the tangent there. Let's get back to it. Unlike your DVR, you can even control how fast you listen to podcasts. Think the host talks too slow? You can set the playback speed to 1.5 or 2 times speed if that's your thing. Personally, I like to hear the host speak at a normal pace. I think something is lost when you listen faster, but you do whatever floats your boat. Or maybe the host talks too fast. You can run them at half speed if you want to make them sound like they're drunk. Maybe that'll add some fun to your podcasting. Another great thing about podcasts is they cover a wide range of topics. Okay, I've got a lot of links here, so if you're interested in any of these podcasts, just go to the show notes, click on it, and it'll take you, I don't know where. It'll be there. I'll try to make it to the web page so it doesn't, call out either iTunes or Apple Podcasts or Android. Anyway, wide range of topics. That's where I was. Okay. Do you like sports? Hey, many of your favorite ESPN shows have podcast versions too, such as Pardon the Interruption, Golic and Wingo, and Around the Horn. How about news? You can choose from Fox News Flash, The Lead with Jake Tapper, or NPR News Now, just to name a few. Maybe you're a computer nerd. Check out MacBreak Weekly or This Week in Google. Do shiny new cars make you happy? Check out the Car and Driver podcast, Talking Cars from Consumer Reports, or NPR's hilarious Car Talk. Or maybe you want to learn something new. Check out TED Talks Daily or Stuff You Should Know. I highly recommend Stuff You Should Know. Are you into documentary type stuff? Check out the Serial podcast from NPR. Maybe fiction is more your shtick. We're Alive is a zombie story that brings you a new chapter in an ongoing tale each episode. That's kind of new to podcasting, and it's really kind of cool. Hey, are you a fan of The Simpsons TV show? There's enough of those podcasts to make you want to eat your shorts. Have trouble sleeping? Fire up Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. Please do this after you're done driving. Hey, maybe you're into chameleon breeding. Yep, there's a podcast for that too called Chameleon Breeder. I'm not yanking your chain here, folks. My point is, if you have an obscure interest in something, it's likely someone is doing a podcast about it. It might not be a great podcast, but it'll be out there. Now, podcasts aren't all great. They can be good or bad. Some podcasts sound great, but have worthless content. Others have great content, but sound awful. The good thing is you can make the decision. If you think the content is worthy enough, you can choose to tolerate less than stellar audio. Now, podcasts are great, but they don't cover everything. I obviously love podcasts, but I do need to point out a few things podcasts aren't good at. Podcasts aren't great for music. There are some shows that play clips of music, but as you probably know, it's illegal to play copyrighted music, which makes what I just did a big no-no. There actually used to be a trucking podcast that simply played an entire album in a continuous stream. Unsurprisingly, it's not available anymore. I don't know how it was ever available in the first place. Podcasts aren't great for live sports either. There are a lot of sports talk shows, but none of them cover live sporting events. Again, we're dealing with copyright issues here. As much as it pains me to say it, if you want live sports, you need to keep your Sirius XM radio. And lastly, podcasts don't cover every topic. It's shocking how many podcasts cover oddball subjects, but you're probably out of luck if you're trying to find one based on your pantyhose fetish. Podcasts are simply the best media for truckers. As you can tell, I'm a podcast junkie. Heck, I do one myself, so that's no big surprise. I only wish I could explain to every trucker what they're missing. I listen to podcasts approximately 75% of my driving time. The rest is obviously spent singing along as loud as I can. As soon as I got into podcasts, I ditched my XM radio and the monthly bill that went along with it. I've never looked back. Everything I've learned since has basically been from podcasts. So, podcast listeners unite. So if you've never tried listening to a podcast before, please give it a shot. You can start by clicking the play button near the top of this blog post. By doing so, you'll quickly notice that we cover a lot more in the podcast version, such as commenting on stories, products, and services I find on the web. I also read listener comments and answer questions in the feedback section. And more recently, I've added a new segment where a trucker highlights a favorite restaurant that is truck accessible or within range for truck parking. Basically, we just have a lot more fun in there. I mean, who doesn't want to hear me break into song every now and then? Think about it, you podcast listeners. The people who just read the blog had no idea that I just sang for them. Wait, maybe that's a reason to not listen to the podcast. Never mind. I didn't say that. Anyway, I honestly feel bad that most truckers have no idea what they're missing. Because of podcasts, I've laughed out loud, I've learned new things, I've gotten mad, I've been entertained, I've even wept quietly. When was the last time any type of radio did that for you? If you're already a podcast listener, please spread the word to your fellow truckers. Tell them about your favorite podcast and maybe go even further. I've decided that I'm just not going to be shy about this anymore. If someone shows even the slightest interest in podcasts, I'm going to ask them what interest they have and offer to set their phone up right there on the spot. What's the worst that can happen? They're already looking at me weird anyway.
Hey, yo, bud, where do you want this load of feedback?
All right, it's time for some feedback. Now I know what you're thinking. Hey, how come he didn't sing? Well, I figured you got enough of that in this episode so far. So I'll spare you this time. So, who do we got? All right, I guess we better go ahead and get my screw up out of the way. You know how I'm always whining and crying because I want to get audio feedback instead of, just regular emails that I can read? Well, I got one from Renee. The problem is she sent the text version too, and I already read it back in TruckerDump 124, the overweight axle debacle. Oh, she sent it to me. I didn't know it was the same clip. I thought it was a different clip, but here I had one, and now I can't even play it because I've already read you the email on a previous episode. How cool is that? But thank you, Renee, anyway. She did a really good job, too. The audio quality was great. She read great. Man, I just suck. Why am I like this? Anyway, I guess we'll just move on and accept that I'm a bonehead. So, hey, Jeff had a word about CRST exemption. If you remember right, CRST had applied to the DOT or the FMCSA or whoever they do for an exemption so their students didn't have to have a license right away. Like, they were able to go without a license, and I could not understand that. I just couldn't wrap my head around it. Well, Jeff wrote in to finally make some sense of this. Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it. He writes, the exemption granted was so that students that have passed their road test could team drive until they get back to their home state to get the actual license card. New students still need a trainer in the jump seat, so don't panic just yet. Well, Jeff, okay, I won't panic. But I was panicking, I admit. I just couldn't make any sense of it. This does kind of make sense to me, I guess. So, I guess I don't have anything more to rant about that. Thanks for clearing that up, Jeff. Hey, next up we're going to hear from Taylor. Now, I'm not sure if I'm being made fun of here, if I'm being spammed. I'm not sure what's going on here. But Taylor had a comment on TruckerDump 93, the driver's seat phenomenon. And he says, wow, that's interesting that the average truck driver drives about 120,000 miles every year. It's good to know that those seats are adjustable for those long drives. Might as well be comfortable while driving, after all. I'd be interested in learning what kind of adjustments are made for these seats to help drivers for these long trips. Now, here's the thing. The reason why I think I might be getting spammed and convinced to talk about seats is because the URL listed along with his email is from a website called cabseats.com. It looks like AU. Is that Australia? I don't know. Anyway, it's cab, KABSEATS. So, hey, if your goal was to get your plug, which he didn't ask for, to be honest, he did not ask for it. But, for those of you who don't know, of course, all you truckers do, but for you non-truckers who don't know, we do have a lot of adjustments on our seats. Like my jump seat, the passenger, I got nothing for that. So when my nephews come out with me, they're just sitting basically on a rock over there. I mean, it's got a cushion, but there's no suspension to it or anything at all. But like I said, for those of you who don't know, the driver's seats in all these trucks nowadays are air ride, and you can adjust the air to how high you want the seat, to how much bounce you want it to have. You can make it rock back and forth a little bit. I'd be curious to hear how people do that. They have two settings. Basically, you can have it rocking back and forth just a little bit, or you can just have it fixed in place. I'm a rocker. Well, of course I'm a rocker. I'm always a rocker. But I do like my chair to go back and forth a little bit. They've got lumbar controls. They've got, there's like 3 or 4 different zones in the back where you can, jack it up or or down a little bit just to fit your back. Sometimes the seat will actually tilt forward or backward a little bit. And I'm not talking about the back of the seat. I'm talking about the part we actually sit on. And that's to kind of take circulation, help the circulation in your legs. So you can adjust it that way a little bit. And these seats can be pretty basic, or they can be really expensive. You know, you can get these suckers with massage in them, with heat in them, just all kinds of really cool stuff, and all kinds of materials, leather and cloth. But it does make sense, because you think about it, we drivers, we spend a lot of time sitting on our can in that seat. So it would really behoove companies, I think, to invest in good seats, which I think I had a pretty good seat in that Kenworth that I had. But this ProStar one, well, I've had them before. I'm used to them, but they're not the best seats. Not all that comfortable. And one tip I always like to tell people is, if you're slouching in your seat, you're going to have back problems over time, eventually. I take that seat and I set it pretty much 90 degrees upright. Now, I'm not saying I sit like that all the time. I do slouch a little bit, but the vast majority of time when I'm driving, I am sitting almost bolt upright. A lot of times my back is not even touching the seat. My lower back is, but my upper back is not. And I just find that it's, I don't have any back problems. Very rarely. If I have a back problem, it's because I slept on my back wrong, or I'm getting ready to pass a kidney stone or something. So that's just a little tip for any people who have back problems, or maybe some of you new drivers who don't want to have back problems. Just learn how to adjust that seat right, and don't slouch all the time. So anyway, thanks for writing in, Taylor. Apparently you either listened to or read the driver's seat phenomenon. Hope you enjoyed that article. There'll be a link in the show notes to all these articles, by the way. Next up, Jeff had a suggestion for me. Okay, I wrote into a podcast. Well, actually, I sent an audio comment into a podcast, because cool people do that for the podcasts that they like. Seriously, though, I sent an audio comment into the School of Podcasting, and I was just talking about how hard it was to get truckers involved in podcasting. And a guy named Jeff Myers wrote in to give me a little hint, and I appreciate it. He says, "Hey, I heard you this AM and your dilemma about getting the word out about your podcast. Jeff, it's not just my podcast. It's all podcasts I want truckers to know about. But hey, if I can get a benefit from it too, great." He says, "One suggestion. YouTube has a ton of channels put together by truckers covering everything from women truckers, trucking families, ask a trucker any question, etc. You may want to hit them up for cross-promotion." Jeff, this is a great idea. I have been wanting to venture out into YouTube more, because I see the potential of it out there. Video is just so much more work than audio is, and you can already see what a problem I have kicking out podcasts as is. And then if I try to go and add video to it too, I'm not saying I'll do the whole podcast, but even like podcast promotion, some little things about what the podcast is about. But I am such a perfectionist with this kind of stuff that I'm just not willing to just point a camera at me and throw it out there. I don't think I'd be happy with that. I suppose I could try it, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to go down that route. But I want to, but it's just a lot of work. But I guess I could reach out to some of these other truckers and try to, get them to talk about my podcast on their show. I don't know why they would do that. Maybe just so they have content themselves. I don't know. It's an idea, though, and I am looking into it. All right, this next thing comes from Trucker Bob, who you might remember from the last episode doing the Trucker Grub, the very first Trucker Grub thing for Jimmy C's restaurant in Baltimore. And he's a good friend of mine. He's in the TruckerDump Slack group. He's in the iTruckers Slack group. He is actually the reason why those Slack groups were started. So I appreciate him as always. Well, Trucker Bob had a little problem with some truck parking, and he had just heard my podcast about reserve truck parking, whether it's convenience or exploitation. And he wrote this, and I'm just going to read you this thread. This will kind of give you a idea of the kind of conversations we have in the TruckerDump Slack group. Although this one was actually in the iTruckers Slack group. But regardless, we have these kind of conversations over in the TruckerDump group also. So here goes. Bob says, I pulled into a Flying J with my parking reserved and there were no spaces available. They couldn't get anyone to move. I had to get a refund and go down the road to a Petro. I piped in and said, kind of defeats the purpose of reserved parking, doesn't it? And Shannon, who you might remember from me mentioning earlier, he wrote, well, that sucks. I wonder what they would do if you were out of drive time. Looks to me like they'd have to let you park there. Mike, who goes by Packrat in here, says, I brought that up with TA and Petro. Was told they are illegally parked. Not sure about getting them to move. In this case, I was watching a particular TA on my app as to spaces available, and if it got down to a few, I'd spring for one. I didn't, but I did notice all the spots were full. You gotta love e-logs. No, you really don't have to love e-logs. And Shannon says, if they were parked illegally, then they would need to be towed so that I, a paying customer, could get my spot. I wrote, I think this is Flying J's problem, not yours, Bob. What is this crap they can't get anyone to move? It's their job to tell the illegally parked drivers that they're going to get towed if they don't move. Because let's be honest, if a tow truck showed up, they would move immediately rather than be towed. Can they not enforce these parking spaces on the legal basis? Because if that's the case, then they shouldn't be doing it at all. Bob says, one driver wouldn't roll down the window, and the other wouldn't get out of the sleeper. Pilot wouldn't call the cops. As soon as they got someone to move, another truck parked next to the fence. I had it. I said, give me your refund. The Flying J was next to a Dollar General DC. Oh, well, that explains it. Anytime a truck stops right next to a huge distribution center, it's always jam-packed. And Packrat, Mike, says, I think it would require the cops to get the driver to move. I don't think you can tow a vehicle with a person in it. Wonder what would happen if you said, fine, I'm sleeping on the fuel island. I'd certainly try to make a complaint to corporate. And I said, I totally agree with Packrat. File a complaint with Flying J corporate. Maybe if enough of these complaints come in, they'll get rid of these stupid parking places. Packrat says, in fact, some kind of hashtag Twitter might get their attention. And Steve, there's a new name for you. He's been in there quite a long time, actually. He says, it's too bad, Bob Mack, that you couldn't park in a very inconvenient spot for those drivers when they were done with their break. I wrote, that would have been great to park in front of all of them, and when they woke you up in the morning to chew you out, you could just point them at the douchebag who's parked without paying. Just make sure you're blocking the douchebag, too, so you can get the joy of seeing him irate when he wakes up. But, I pointed out, obviously I would never do that, but it does give me great joy to think about it. And Steve says, me too. I wouldn't do that either, but it sure is fun to think about it. And Shannon says, man, if I had the opportunity, I'd drop some equipment right in front of their trucks. Shannon hauls rental equipment like big forklifts and dozers and all kinds of stuff like that. So that would be great if he could drop something like that. Anyway, that just kind of gives you an idea of the kind of conversations we have over there in the Slack groups. And, it just goes to show this reserve parking, I really want to find out. Maybe I need to get somebody on the show and talk about the legality of these spaces, because if they can't enforce them, can they really charge for them? I'm confused about this whole thing. It doesn't make any sense to me. And it makes even less sense because it's on a private lot. So I'm sure that changes the rules some. I'm just confused. I don't know. Maybe I will try to find some lawyer who knows something about this and get him on the show and talk to him about it. Anyway, what do you think? Have you heard anything about this? Do you know what the legality of? Anybody? You know what the legality of all this is? Because I'm clueless, obvious. And apparently everyone else is, including the Pilot Flying J employees. Anyway. All right, let's finish this sucker up with Roger. I'm often reading emails where people are complimenting me about the podcast, or they have something good to say about the book, or, just making me feel all warm and fuzzy. Well, it isn't always like that, and Roger is proof of this. Okay. He writes in about TruckerDump 95, 4 reasons that trucker might be tailgating you. Now, I knew this one was probably going to raise the ire of four-wheelers, and I didn't really care, because what I had to say in it I thought was relevant, and maybe it would just wake some of them up and they would quit doing stupid crap around trucks. So anyway, playing off the title, 4 reasons that trucker might be tailgating you. Oh, wait. I feel the need again to reach out to Brian in Australia, who lets his daughter listen to this podcast sometimes because it's clean. Well, it's fixing not to be clean here in a second. So you might want to put the old earmuffs on her. Anyway, just the warning. Any of you got kids listening to this? I'd be interested, by the way, if you do let your kids listen to this, or if they even want to. Can't imagine they would, but either way. Like I said, his comment plays off the title, 4 reasons that trucker might be tailgating you. He says, because you're a dick and you're going to do it at any speed. So better to ease off till you finally go around so you can go bang a hooker 15 seconds sooner today. Wow. So I guess he didn't read my Road to Smutville. He just read this one article. So I guess he's not a regular listener. Probably not listening to this right now, which is too bad. Because if he did, he would know there's no way I'm going to go bang a hooker at a truck stop or anywhere for that matter. But you know how I know Roger is really pissed, though? Because this email came in at 1:51 a.m. No big deal. But he sent another one that came in at 1:53 a.m. That's when you know you're mad. He's fired off an email so fast, and he was so mad that he decided, oh, crap, I forgot to say one more thing. And so he had to email me again. So he says, why do truckers tailgate in the slow lane, especially when taking an exit? I assume most tailgating truckers, especially fast trucks, are just steering wheel holders used to console games. Now, I'm not sure what that means. What does he mean by console games? Is he implying that we all play trucker console games and we tailgate everybody and drive aggressively? I'm not sure what he means by that. But anyway, why do truckers tailgate in the slow lane? Well, probably, Roger, because the person in front of them is going slow. I mean, if they were going the speed limit, the trucker probably wouldn't be tailgating them. So I'm just saying, go the speed limit. Sure, there's going to be jerks out there. I understand that. There's always jerks in every industry. But the vast majority of truckers are not going to tailgate someone if they're not doing anything wrong. Maybe they're varying their speed. Maybe they've slowed down like 2 miles before the exit ramp, which is a strange phenomenon I have never been able to figure out, but I see even trucks do it sometimes. And it's like, and I'm in a speed limited truck, so of course I can't just go around them because I'm afraid I'm, going to have to cut back in front of them if I'm needing that exit. And that's kind of a dick move. So I never want to do that. So I'm just stuck behind them going 5 or 10 mile an hour under the speed limit, until they hit their exit ramp. Anyway, it's really maddening. But anyway, thanks for writing in, Roger. I appreciate all comments, even ones from guys like you. All right. I guess that'll about do it then. I'd like to thank both Jeffs, Taylor, Bob, and even Roger for writing in. And again, sorry to Renee for screwing things up. This episode of TruckerDump has been sponsored by East Insurance Group, which can be found at eastinsurancegroup.com/TruckerDump, and Citadel Fleet Safety, which can be found at citadelfleet.com. All right, here's one final plea to you podcast listeners to spread the word about podcasts to your less tech-savvy trucking brethren. But if you don't have time to evangelize them yourself, send them over to abouttruckdriving.com and tell them to search for TD127. Hopefully they'll get hooked on the Trucker Dump podcast and send their suggestions, comments, and questions into truckerdump@gmail.com. Or they'll hunt me down on Twitter where I'm at Todd McCann. That's 2 D's, 2 C's, and 2 N's. You know, I've pimped the Slack groups enough today, so just find the emails in the show notes if you're interested. And be sure to search Facebook for Trucker Dump Podcast Group and join us over there. Well, thanks for listening. So until next time, drive safe and stay out of my way. Many drivers now use some sort of digital media. Many drivers now use some sort of digital media. Many drivers now use some sort of digital media. Fudge. Many drivers still use some sort of digital media player. Medial? Good Lord. Many drivers now use some sort of digital media player like their smartphone. Smartphone? What the? What's wrong with me today? Many drivers now use some sort of digital media player like their smartphone. Oh. Internet. Dear God. It's going to be a long day. Internet. I said it again. Son of a. No more denying. I gotta face it. Won't close my eyes and hide the truth inside. If I don't make it, someone else will stand my ground.